Tell me and take your time.
What's up? This is the Quest for the Best Director podcast. My name is Matthew Moore. Who's invested way too much on Quest for the Best Director stocks. Caleb Ferguson. Caleb, what's going on?
Not too much. I'm just happy to be recording a podcast. It's been a little while, and I'm excited to get back into it.
Yeah, hopefully this shouldn't be the case again, just because we don't have that many podcasts left. So
Yeah.
I think we would have banged out a lot of these last ones. Yeah, it's nice to be back, huh? Thanks to come back on. I feel like we start this podcast though, like, great to be back. It's been a minute.
Yeah, it's actually true. You're right.
Also joining us is a guy who's tried to set me up with his daughter one too many times. Derek, how's it going?
Pretty good. I got done cleaning my colon, so that's good.
That sounds fun.
Like, you actually clean it, or you just kind of,
In the traditional sense.
Sure, okay. Survivor, this guy, guy can't poop. The doctor's like, this really thick Australian accent. He's like, Bruce, can you poop? Can you poop, mate? Anyways, this is the Quest for the Best Director podcast. We're getting down to it. Quarterfinals matchup. We got Michelangelo, Antonioni. Neither of these two are big, right?
Agree.
I think the last rounds we have had at least one with Stanley Kubrick. These are, I think two people you could expect in a top 8. Tony and Ozu really are not.
I think Ozu, he's pretty famous, right?
They're both famous. It's just more the fact that, body of work might not be up to snuff. You know what I mean?
True.
So, we'll get to this in a sec. I think they both have some stylistic deficiencies as well, which I think these movies both positive and, in a negative way, right?
Talking shit about Ozu?
Yeah. I'm going to criticize both these directors because they both deserve some fair criticism for both these movies, but also they did a lot good. This is a star-studded round, but I realized that if I want to be a good, fair analyst, I've got to really look into the goods and the bads here. That's the thing. I feel like the first rounds I could afford to be mostly positive, right? Because usually the better movie kind of just is obvious in those rounds, But with this one, you really got to look at the negatives because I think things now it's more about who's doing things.
That's true. We could definitely fill up the entire podcast just talking about good things because there's so many good things. You know what I mean?
But the issue is if we do that, then how do we judge at the end, right? It's kind of arbitrary, and I feel like we're not really fairly discussing.
I agree completely.
Already, it's going to be a good podcast. But anyways, so it's Antonioni's Leclis versus Yasujiro Ozu's An Autumn Afternoon. Leclis is about this girl who just recently broke off from her fiance and kind of this other guy, Piero, who is this stockbroker. And Autumn Afternoon is about this man, Hirayama, is that right?
Hirayama, yeah.
And close enough. Who is, has a daughter. He's a widower, and he has his daughter who lives at home with him. And the two of them, at first he wants to keep his daughter because he needs a woman around the house, but now he's trying to get her married off. What were your initial impressions of both of the movies?
Initial impressions, what I thought during the beginning of the movie?
Your overall impressions, I guess, might be a better.
Okay. I thought Leclis was really difficult to understand what was happening narratively. I could tell like what was happening in every moment, but I was like, I don't understand how this like fits into like the thematic ideas of the movie. And like it just felt like there was a bunch of different storylines that were almost like separate, and I couldn't quite tie them together.
Um, because I was kind of feeling like a sort of opposite manner, where I feel like at least the storyline's kind of just there, you know? And I
Yeah.
think it's actually almost, I think it's more traditional of a story than An Autumn Afternoon.
Yeah, but I feel like Autumn Afternoon, like,
And
you
I'm
can
going
at
to
least
predict Derek's mind really quick. I'm sorry, Caleb. And I feel Derek's agree with me here. Autumn After, or sorry, at least it's kind of slow,
Yeah.
right?
Exceptionally so. I think intentionally on his part, but whether or not that's actually effective or most effective for what he's trying to do, yeah.
Get a Scott. But beats a bit stronger than an Autumn Afternoon does as well. Where Autumn Afternoon, like you said, Caleb, maybe it's like easier to like. It's more of a nice bundle thematically and like narratively, but also it's just really like hardly a narrative. I would say it's much more of a character study. Which
Yeah. The difference is, it's not that it's hardly a story. It's that I'm not gonna go fully because this is like a theory that I've kind of finalized about Ozu, but basically this is the minimalization of drama in the story. There's still the story, but what Ozu is done is normally in like a movie or whatnot, like there's a narrative and then like there's the action and whatnot. Either the director will like dramatize the action or the character dialogue or whatnot, or the acting or something to like heighten the emotions. What Ozu's doing isn't really, he's not trying to do that in any traditional sense. He's not trying to add any like drama to it that's like, or like to dramatize it like in a heightened way. The story's still there, but it's left to lie more on its own than would be traditional.
yeah, but I feel like it's just not a traditional narrative, right? So same thing, but what that does, Derek, is it kind of makes it more of a character study. Sort of presented with these characters, and
I would say yes. That's kind of yes, but that's kind of what he's using. It's important because he's trying to use the characters to explore a specific cultural theme, and then use that cultural theme as well to extend to a very broad world view.
I agree completely with that because I feel like the thematic elements of On Autumn Afternoon are like they're way too universal to be considered a character study. Because like yeah, we are just like looking at these characters, but like in doing that, he's basically getting at like some really like broad universal archetypal truths, like even in the title, right? It's about like kind of coming to terms with like middle or old age and death approaching and
Yeah,
all of these ideas, right? Like so it's unfair to say that it's as simple as a character study when it's like thematically so broad.
so I see what you're saying. Maybe character study isn't the right word, but it's definitely not like a traditional narrative. I think we're all kind of saying the same thing. It just doesn't hit these narrative beats like Derek's saying. It kind of has this absence of drama,
Yeah, I agree.
poignancy to it,
And
and once again, we can.
it's kind of interesting because it's also I'm don't want to say entirely an absence of drama, because what he's presenting is kind of a dramatic idea. Because with these characters in this, we're gonna say character study, but we've already said it's kind of like not, so we can just say a study of the idea of like aloneness and death and aging through these characters. So it's kind of a difficult subject because the idea of being alone, even in your last moments, is a pretty dramatic idea. And that the fact that that is the happiest route for the whole is kind of such a depressing idea that it's kind of not necessarily one that can be undramatized.
I do agree. I think, but once again, it's like not a narrative. I mean, I guess it is narrative at the end, right?
Mm-hmm.
Very point moment of him, like I'm all alone or whatever he says. But I think up until that point, like we're saying is crux of the drama here is, like you're saying, this kind of inevitability of old age and death.
And also, he does. The thing that solidifies the idea of the aloneness is how he sets up his shots, because he uses two primary kinds of shots.
Before we get to like this, I just want to kind of I like where you're going with this, but I'm just gonna say that I think trying to heighten this loneliness is not, or heighten this theme is almost to not give credence to everything else that's going on, right? Because just on this one theme, and you don't only present drama to like, maybe like the struggles of finding love or these sorts of things, right? Themes, it almost heightens this one by kind of almost rubbing in your face that this other theme isn't there. Also kind of heighten this, which you can now go into, Derek, transition.
Yeah, he is like not like using like dramatic techniques. Is the fact that he's using them in a very singular way, because he's using two primary shots to get at the idea of being alone, primarily, which is the side shots and the group shots. He uses the group shots almost pretty much just to establish that these people are with other people. This is a happy group moment. And then he uses the side profile to say this person, he'll like set up this person's right here looking at this other person talking, and they're talking alone right now, and the other person's receiving that. But it's not an unhappy thing. They're just talking together right now. And what he'll do is in this moments when he's like, okay, I'm going to singularly focus on them being alone, is that he will not establish a group shot. And since this is probably, I'm going to call that the primary shot, and the secondary shot, the side profile shot. The side profile shot there becomes like a study of them being alone in a very, it's almost like entirely, like when you put like someone in the center of the screen, like putting the focus on them, it's like doing that, but not on them as a character, but on them as being the idea of alone. And he does that pretty much every moment when he wants that to be an idea that you're thinking about. So when the teacher is the first time he uses the shot, that's kind of like the alone shot. What is that? I know his nickname's the Gourd, but I don't want to call him the Gourd. That's kind of mean.
He's like an old professor,
Call
right?
him the Gourd. That's all I know him as too.
Oh, okay. His name's Sakuma, but the Gourd. Yeah, he's in his ramen shop. Hiroyama has dropped him off after he's gotten drunk, and we've seen the side profile of the Gourd and Hiroyama and his daughter looking towards the street, which has light. So he's using light to establish this is a happy moment. There's like some kind of brevity there, and immediately after Hiroyama leaves, it switches angles like 180 degrees, looking into the shop, in the dark shop, and you just see a side profile of Hiroyama just like dazed and confused, alone, with only darkness behind him.
And then his daughter Tamako like starts crying. Oh my God.
And it's the quick shift between like light and darkness, and the Hiroyama smiling and the Gourd being happy, like it was a fun time, buddy, yeah. To realizing that this is not a happy place for him, like at all. And that the little bit that of happiness that he got to experience at the bar with his former students is pretty much all he has. It just heightened to another level, but it's heightened not in the sense of the normal sense. I would say it non-traditionally, because he's not using like anything too out there. He's not using like a big score or anything. He just literally just light and dark and shift of angle.
I actually am 100% with you, Derek. That's brilliant. Caleb's side comment. The crying feels a bit heavy-handed there.
Nah, I thought it was really powerful.
I was
Kind of felt just like I feel like you could have done that with much more subtlety, much more realism. For a movie that has so much realism, it feels a bit like
I didn't really touch on this, perhaps, but when Yuriyama's talking, you see the daughter kind of like rushing him along, and you're kind of like, it's not a big deal because that's like the polite thing to do. He's like, we don't really have anything for you here. We're sorry. The normal stuff. Until you realize, the crying kind of helps us realize that the reason why she was doing that personally.
we not have just gotten like her looking kind of sad. You know what I mean?
I think it's important though, because like this comes up later. Like this is like a scene that you need to particularly remember because this is like basically showing like the dark path that the main character can go down if he chooses to like hang on to his daughter, right? Because he doesn't want to be alone. And if he like takes the path of cowardice, he'll end up like this where he's gonna bring his daughter like sadness and I guess shame, right? So like this scene isn't like you need to remember this moment because it's coming up later, right? So it's not enough to just appreciate it now. It needs to be strong enough to like that you're gonna remember this scene like in an hour or 30 minutes or whatever. Additionally, I agree that it's.
Yeah.
I also agree that it is more dramatic than the other stuff, but I don't think it's that bad to have like one moment of like slightly heightened drama because I think it makes it so much more powerful as a result. Like
yeah, that was
like when that happened, I was like my jaw dropped because it felt so powerful, like in comparison to everything else.
So I don't think my jaw dropped. I just feel like giving him too much credit. I feel like what very likely happened is side actress. Correct me if I'm wrong, but a lot of Ozu's actors and actresses seem to like not be as professional. Obviously, our main actor definitely is. People are like more unknowns, and I think it's easier to get somebody to cry than it is to get someone to like have like this more subtle, complex facial expression.
sure, but he's making what he has work for him. I think it pays off in this moment fairly well. I think, like Caleb said, the shift between entirely like I'm not gonna say entirely, but non-dramatized action and narrative to the scene where he's like just playing with light and a woman crying to establish these themes that is kind of the fact that the simplicity of that lending so much drama is really beautiful in a way.
Yeah, so I just would clarify. I don't think this is a bad scene at all. It was just purely in Caleb's remarks, like he's like my jaw was dropped and these sorts of things. I just think it's like I don't think because it's like a dramatic moment that necessarily makes it a big moment. I think sometimes we can. But
I just thought it was really powerful. It came off powerfully to me, I guess.
Fair enough.
I agree.
Spaces when we watch these movies, right? Like, who am I to judge? Okay, so let's continue on to the movie though. So we have actually really addressed kind of this. I guess like one of the main features of the movie is them at this restaurant, right? They're always here. It's this large group of guys. Really, it's these same three guys. Of the hero. We have his friend, the guy who's married to the young girl.
That's Hori.
Any of their names? Hori, yeah, that's right. I actually didn't catch his name. But then who's the other guy? I actually do not know his name.
You mean Sugai or Sugai? Yeah, Sugai or Kuwait.
Oh, Kuwait.
There's Kuwait, and then there's Sugai, and then there's another couple dudes who are not important, but I think
it's definitely Kuwait.
Yeah, the one who's the first one who's like, yo, why the fuck are you like keeping your daughter unhappy with this bullshit, dude?
In general,
Which-
just kind of the wild lad of the group. It gets a big goofy. But yeah, continue. I'm sorry.
I was just thinking earlier. You said something. Your like description of the narrative was that he's keeping her there to take care of him, which is obviously part of it. That's like the culture aspect that Ozu is addressing. But I think there's a double-sided thing going on where Michiko has already decided how things are going to be going in her life, and that she's fine with helping him at this moment in time. He's not actively trying to keep her there, and I think that's kind of an important distinction because there's no conflict going on in that situation.
I agree. There's not like a character-to-character conflict. Yeah.
So the conflict isn't like in between him and his family. It's in between him and like this idea of what would make his family happiest, and him versus society through his like the expectations of his friends and whatnot.
I do want to interject though that there is like a little bit of conflict with her, but it's like reversed, right? Like
Yeah.
like go out,
Yeah.
find a husband, and she's like, no, it's okay. You need me. I'll be here. That kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
I think almost in this way, that's where it does sort of, because we realize that he's put her in this position, right, where she can't leave, like where she's had to convince herself not to leave. And I think it almost makes it more poignant that like he needs to get her out of here, right? Because it's not going to get any easier to change.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Back to these like bar scenes. Like, what do we think of like all these bar scenes? Because there's a lot of them.
They're
very interesting.
They're great. I think it kind of provides a home base both for us and for the characters. So it's kind of just like this cool little location and like vibe maybe that we can like just keep returning to, and it's like so pleasant, right? Because it's just like hanging out with your bros. You just got like 3 or 4 old dudes just hanging out, cracking jokes, drinking beers. It's a good time. I wanna watch a movie like that. It's entertaining.
Also, when the shots are in the like bar/restaurant thing, it emphasizes the interesting thing about his shots, especially his group shots, is that they're always at a like slightly below the waist angle, like upwards kind of, so you can get the view of them sitting on the ground. Like you can clearly see them like planted on the ground, but not at a downward angle, but at a level angle, which is very interesting. So you get one shot from across the other room into their room very frequently.
It's almost like you're at their level, right? Like you're sitting at the table with them.
Mm-hmm. Very interesting.
I think like I'm gonna wait. It's me because like these characters are a bit like too old for some of this. That's what makes them happy.
Yeah.
Like we have this one shot. Beers. You guys know what I'm talking about? It's with like the Bigs group, and they have like these beers kind of lined up.
Yeah.
And it's beers kind of like in the foreground, and they're all in the background. And it feels like, whoa, these lads just like slamming these. But then sometimes like this isn't right. These guys do all have lives, and aren't that of young guys, but of these people who know each other, right? I think that you also get that sense through some of his is kind of the unfamiliarity in this room as much as the familiarity.
Yeah, that's kind of what happens from like the happiness that the Gord feels, is that this is unusual for him, but that's partly because he's so lonely, but also because that's kind of just expected of someone of his age. These people are talking with their middle school teacher. They're not talking with like, someone actually relevant to their life at this point.
Yeah, it's like really sad moment, right? Like the only thing they can talk about is like all the other old teachers.
Yeah.
His whole life has become nostalgia.
Like when he relates to them, he can only relate to them through what they were.
Yeah, exactly.
Currently drunk, he's like, "You were such a snot-nosed kid. Never knew this would happen to you."
Yeah. But I think on the contrary, I think that when it's just like the middle-aged dudes, their rapport together is so entertaining. Like when they play the gag where they keep saying that like Hori's dead and they're like having his funeral and stuff.
Oh yeah.
Like, man, I totally bought it. And then they do it again, but in reverse, where like Hori tells them, I think it was Hori that like, the date that he was going to arrange with the main character's daughter is off because he got another offer or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And like all this like just like great banter back and forth is so entertaining, and they keep making jokes about like the old man and his young wife and how he's taking Viagra and all this stuff or whatever they had over there.
It's an interesting levity for sure.
I think something might have been lost on you a bit though, Caleb, because the dead thing we know that's not to be true before they go into the joke.
Oh, maybe I missed that. Wait, that Hori's dead or that the other one?
That Hori's dead. Yeah, because this is something that came with my translation. I think there's a few things in this movie that might be like weird depending on how your subtitles are. It was like he said something is oh gosh, should I write this down? He said something was adorable. I think like referring to someone's daughter or something. Oh no, referring to Hori's wife is adorable, right?
Uh-huh.
Our main character was like, wait, what'd you say? Because like he legitimately didn't hear him. Like Hariyama didn't hear. Sorry, like Kwai, and Kwai was like,
yeah,
I said it's horrible. And he's like, the woman's like, what's up horrible? And he's like, you didn't hear what happened? And then Hirayama kind of catches on to the joke then. But it's actually, it's even more layered when it comes to like the realism of like to next. It's like, it's a bit hard to pay attention to, but yeah. A few things like that. Like the sea eel.
Oh yeah.
For you guys. Was that translated to sea eel?
Yeah.
That was hilarious.
Stuff like that, I think, it's fun,
Yeah.
That's super fun that I want to talk about is the scene at the other bar with the guy who he was the captain for. Hariyama was the captain for.
Oh yeah.
I love that scene. That's why I guess we're the awards in a bit. At least in this movie, my favorite scene.
Yeah, that's like kind of the other major theme, which kind of like dovetails into our theme about like aging and coming to terms with things, but like, Japan's role in the war and losing and all that kind of stuff is like a lot of people, just like the Gourd, are like living their lives through this nostalgia. You're like, what would have happened if we won? All this kind of thing, and then our main character has sort of like come to terms with it. Like, yeah, it's probably better that we didn't, and all that kind of thing. So it's kind of like it's great because it manages to like expand upon the breadth of themes that this movie is talking about by like kind of just completely moving it to a different subject. Like, one is like, the social lives of these old farts, and the other one is like, a military patriotism commentary. But like, they both further the same idea of like coming to terms with the past and where you are in life and not living in nostalgia, basically. So they just fit so well together while also being different.
And also, what it does is it the West as like the young and the trendy. Right, when this guy's talking like we could be in New York right now, which is also a thing that kind of pervades throughout not only this movie but like all of those movies. It seems it's associated with the West, and the West is like the new, and the East is the old, the traditional. Their costume design, you notice it a lot as well. Where like the younger people were wearing these kind of like fit, trendy costumes, except for interestingly enough, his daughter in this old traditional way.
Because the idea there is obviously she spent the whole movie being like, I just have to take care of my father, which is a very traditional idea that your like end goal is to like support a man, and she's like the hyper realism that she's willing to give up, like going and marrying the dude she actually likes for that ideal.
Exactly. I think it's really well done that way, right? What other comments do we have about the movie?
I like the way they would always like open up a shot with like an exposition, or like a new scene with like an exposition shot to like kind of show us like where we are, like not just like within a building, but like within like society. Like some shots will open up with like some sort of like trendy bar area, very urban. Some are like a lot more like in some sort of like factory district or like much more like poor area. And so the way it kind of always shows us like where this location stands in reference to like society as a whole, I guess.
Sure. Like, what that like powerful? Like, what is an example of like how that came into effect? Like, understand
well-
what I was watching.
Well, like for example, like some of the shots, like what I was saying is like they could just like open up to like all these people like in this person's house, but by showing that this house is in some sort of like industrial poorer area, it just sort of like adds another layer of context to like how this family stands in society, right? Or like any other location we get to see that, like we get to see it not just, it's not even like a shot of the building, right? Like it's not like we're seeing this building from the outside and then we're seeing it from the inside. We're seeing like the area from like a very wide shot. So we're seeing like the whole surrounding city basically before going inside the building.
I see what you're saying now. Okay, yeah, sure. This isn't necessarily like an Ozu thing, right? Because I'm not gonna lie, like, a lot of. I think that's something we should also definitely begin talking about as we like move on to these later stages. Is and maybe it's repeated cheaply sometimes or not so cheaply. Not on brand for Ozu, right? Like these sort of almost like take you in the movie, sort of like music sequences. Not that they were bad, I'm just saying like, it's not his style. So I think it's very interesting. That's a really good point, Caleb. It is definitely like, and once again, not that it's a bad thing, but just like on brand Ozu kind of, always eye level, sort of like conversational. So I think is interesting.
The other kind of one last thing I want to talk about this movie is that in addition to all like the kind of one last theme that's here is sort of like the breakdown of like patriarchal, I guess, or like filial piety, I guess, like respect to elders and stuff, because we see tons of shots in this movie where like a man or like a father will say to like the daughter or wife, like, hey, give me a beer, just kind of shout some command, and she'll be like, no, go do it yourself. And so I think that's kind of like one other way that these men are having to like kind of come to terms with like, this new, and probably this also has to do with like, West versus East, right? Like
Exactly, yeah.
new like Western gender roles where women are on a much more level playing field with males when it's in some cases.
One other storyline I want to talk about really quick before we is the storyline of the son.
Oh yeah.
Hariyama has this 30-year-old son, Koichi.
Koichi.
I have all these written down. I don't remember the pronunciation. That's an issue. Who is, and I think you're saying that like everything ties in so perfectly, and Odd Afternoon doesn't look least, which we'll get to look least when we get there. This one does feel a bit out of place, but basically, Koichi has to ask his father a lot for money, but him and his father still get along well. Because he's kind of buying golf clubs and stuff. And Koichi himself has like a turbulent relationship with his wife, which is touched upon but never really dove into. So, what do you guys think of this little storyline?
Well, what's happening there, at least, is the whole. We already talked about the new gender roles. This is the new gender roles brought to marriage. So it's not just between. So we're looking at what, like, Michiko has to look forward to. Like, this is the gender roles that she is going into, and this is the gender roles that women face in this kind of relationship. So we get the father-daughter, we get the, employee-employer, and we get the husband and wife. And I guess from seeing Michiko basically being a mother to her younger brother, we get mother to son as well.
Debatable, but yeah, I understand what you're saying. Sort of mother son. It's sort of mother. I think it's what's more remarkable there. But I do understand what you're saying. You have any thoughts on the storyline, or should we move on?
And also, the kind of like father-son dynamic is kind of interesting there, because he's you don't really see a deadbeat son who's also very amicable with their father in movies.
Yeah, at least not yet, right? I think this will be something that kind of comes along later in film. But I think, yeah, at this point in film history, I think this is probably pretty unusual.
I think that's all I got for this movie, at least.
Let's move on.
I have some other stuff as well. That I said I had a lot of notes. I already mentioned like the difference in solo shots, but in the solo shots there's kind of an interesting thing that he does where it'll be not of just the face, but the like whole body and like their surroundings. So it's not very frequently. It's when we know that they're in a group and we get these solo shots, it's not like singling them out, and it's not making them like a very personal entity in that moment. Because we get that dichotomy, but we also get the solo shots that are in of themselves not very or as personal as he can make them. So the difference there is also pretty interesting. Oh, the specific places have specific like background music, which is pretty cool. I like that a lot. Especially in the alleyway that the Gourd lives at the noodle shop. There's very specific music that is kind of like the ending music of the film as well. So I thought that was a nice touch because the Gourd's alone. And this is in his moment, Hiroyama becoming as alone as he can be. This is his autumn afternoon. So I like that a lot.
We haven't talked about his doors.
Yeah.
Like, the reason I didn't want to talk about it is because I think it's probably a bit complex of an issue to kind of just tackle. So that's like probably be better like an article sort of format, but he has a lot with doors, right? Like everything is always kind of framed in relation to a door or to multiple doors a lot of the time. Sometimes, but yeah, I think it's almost my guess would be this has to do with like on it to cause tension in this way, right? Because doors are kind of like opportunity, future.
Mm-hmm.
But I think something that also needs to be mentioned because you kind of look like pipes if we don't mention it, but also something that like I'd have to watch the movie at least one more time and like take very thorough notes on exactly just the doors to actually get anything substantial out of.
It's very interesting because the doorways are always established through group shots. Like we see pretty much always. Like the only other time that is not is when like Michiko becomes through like a doorway alone, or Hiroyama comes through a doorway alone into a room, which is immediately followed by a group shot. Or there's two exclusions of that as well, and they're very specific, which I thought was really cool. The first one is when Michiko is alone going into the kitchen, and you see it from through one doorway down the hallway into the other doorway of the kitchen. So you get the hallway shot, and you get to the right. We already know that because there's a right intersection that goes to another doorway, which is the front of the building and the doorway outside. So you get that shot, and Michiko's alone in that moment. But one of the last shots in the movie is Hiroyama going into the kitchen alone down that hallway. Same shot.
I didn't notice that actually. least the second shot. Like, it seemed familiar. I couldn't identify it as you did what exactly it was, but I
So
feel like
this is like,
those really the only two. I feel we get a few of her kind of like going through these doorways, like by herself.
well, she's always pretty much. I can't think of one, but it's pretty much mainly her going through a doorway into a group shot as well. But it's interesting. It's kind of different because the angle's typically different because it'll be like the side for Hiroyama, like the group shot will be in the room. So the group shot will be like the doorway to the left or something, or the right. But Michiko, a lot of the shots that of her alone are in when she's like in employee mode, and she's coming through the doorway to see Kogai or her father Hiroyama in his office. It's just like a solo shot of her coming through the doorway, and it's kind of I don't really get that, but what that is thematically, but it's interesting. And then like the solo shot of like Hiroyama or Kogai will be a 180. So you won't get the doorway in those shots. But in the group shots or the solo shots of Michiko, you will see the doorway.
Interesting. Read this one more time. So you don't see the doorway.
When like Kogai in like his office, you will never see the doorway with Kogai.
Yeah, but you do only see it with
Michiko.
Are we good to go into the police chair?
Oh, a cool little thing that I really liked. It was I only noticed it because Josiah does it, but Hiroyama will go when someone says something that he like agrees with or he's thinking about. He'll go and Koichi will do the exact his son will do the exact same thing. He did that like when his wife was like talking to him. He was like, I was like, he did the exact same thing his father does. I was like, oh, that's such a nice touch.
Those are cool little details.
Oh, the angle of Koichi talking to Miura, I think at the same restaurant as his father goes to, is like maybe not the same one. I think it's like the opposite room. Because it's at a slightly different angle, but you can see this like another room across the hallway, kind of like So yeah, I'm pretty sure it's across the way because it's on the right side, looking towards the front. But yeah, so it's like a slightly different angle from his father. So it's like 90 more degrees to the like turned through the doorway. It's kind of interesting. I don't know why, but I thought that was a cool shot. Because you get the like wooden back of the shop through the window.
That is pretty cool.
And those are the cool things I picked up that I wanted to mention.
You took less notes for it, right, Derek? You're gonna have like tons for the quiz.
Yeah, I'm gonna have a lot.
That's what I figured. Yeah. So just start on that, Derek. We're just talking about the quiz, and how about you just start with your first note and just read all the way down, okay?
Cool. I can do that.
Let's not. I feel like it might not do the movie the justice it deserves. Just speculation. And I actually do this time when I start on literally the opening scene of this movie, Caleb, because I thought it was quite good.
I agree. I like the first scene too.
Interesting. It kind of establishes Victoria. I kept wanting to say Victoria as like sure as a character, right? As a person who like she kind of moves slowly throughout things. See her moving more slowly as she like goes through the scene, right? Like as this kind of drags her down. Another interesting thing is that for the first 7 minutes of the scene, I don't believe there's a single shot of both of their faces. I have to go back and double check because it's something I didn't notice until a couple minutes in. So I went at the beginning because I didn't catch. Show both of their faces, he almost shows both their faces, and this is like clearly for tension.
Mm-hmm.
This is us. Like he has some really cool teases, like some of the more basic stuff, like with mirrors, glass. but also some really cool ones. Like there's a shot where he's sitting down and she's standing and we don't see her face, but we see her shadow. So her shadow is next to his face.
That's cool.
It's just like adding so much tension. Like you get the sense almost that like if he can get into a shot with her, almost in the same shot as her, then he can trap her, right? And we get the scene where they're about to kiss because their faces are both in the same frame. And then she turns away and she kind of shows her strength. And just right from the beginning, like, wow, this movie has like some legs to it.
Also, it's important to think about shadows because if you think the title is L'Eclipse, which means eclipse, and an eclipse is literally a shadow coming across the moon. So
Sure, really interesting point. The title was something, yeah, I think we need to discuss because it's something I didn't 100% get, but I think let's keep notes of like shadow talk and see if we can maybe piece something together.
well, the other layer to the whole eclipse thing is that there's like a lot of like racial commentary in this movie. That this is kind of like what I kind of mentioned before about how I felt like there was like a lot of different storylines and I didn't see how they all fit together. This is like basically what I was referring to is that there's all this like racial commentary that like doesn't seem to like really go anywhere that much. Like it never like reaches any kind of like conclusion. But also the reason I bring it up is because this ties exactly into the name of the film, which is that black is eclipsing white, right?
Oh, interesting.
But yeah, this movie is like I kind of want to know what you guys thought about that because there's this whole like blackface scene.
Yeah, that
really
was
racist.
definitely problematic.
Okay, no,
Yeah.
it's not.
So
Any scene with blackface is not problematic. It's problematic if they're
No.
actually using blackface.
No, that was
I
my
think they're using it to mock it.
yeah, that's my point. That I agree with you on that. That was what I was saying when I watched the movie. But then it doesn't feel like nothing ever happens with it. It just felt like obviously
Yeah.
they're mocking her. They end up like it kind of vaguely ends up like mocking her slightly, but never does it like really condemn her, and never does this like whole racial commentary theme ever reach a conclusion to where I felt like it justified.
Yeah. Also,
Okay,
the fact that
what are
they
your
like
other-
repeatedly called black people Negro specifically in Africa monkeys. I was like,
Yeah.
that's kind of what's the point of making me dislike this character?
She wasn't calling them monkeys. She was.
Yeah, she was calling them
No,
straight
she
up.
no,
definitely
no.
did.
I mean,
No,
no,
she
was
literally
monkeys.
said all kinds of racist stuff.
Yeah, she literally
Wait,
did.
really? Can I please finish? No, she was talking this other woman. They're saying because all the women call her monkeys. They only call her monkeys when they're specifically referencing the other women talking about them. Like, so what do you think of these monkeys? That woman is 1,000% racist. I don't, and obviously someone has some racist issues too. She's like definitely doing blackface and stuff. I don't think necessarily that like the monkeys thing is her calling them monkeys. From my
It seemed like she was calling them monkeys, and not mocking. Why would Why would they establish her as a racist, and then she also be not calling them monkeys unironically?
okay, so let's really quick before we, I think we can maybe answer this question, but let's like gather evidence first, right? So what are other? Because there's like multiple instances of like the race themes. What are other instances to you?
Well, she goes. I don't quite remember the specifics, but I remember it's when she's lying in that bed, and she literally just goes on this like racist diatribe. I don't really, like I said, I don't remember like exactly what she said, but I remember like being like, "Damn, like
Yeah.
she's for real about this." Like
That's
she just
pretty
says,
much
like, so
exactly,
horrific
yeah.
things.
By she means Victoria because
Yes.
I remember the scene at all.
It was pretty
Like,
much
issue
preceding this, or like this one.
I do remember when the other woman's going on this racial diatribe, we're talking about how like, and that's the point of the scene is like, at least that was my interpretation. It was almost more to highlight the other woman, where like these women are being like they're using like blackface and stuff, and it's like really bad. But this woman's like actually being hateful, right? She doesn't tell them to stop the blackface because it's offensive. She tells them to stop the blackface because like she doesn't like these people. I guess we're just to find the differences. But is there outside of like that scene though? Is there like outside of this what's the woman's room? Marta's room. Do we have any scenes of race themes? Do we have any other race themes?
Oh, well, I mean, she goes to Africa, and there's or it's not. I don't know if it was her, but somebody goes to Africa, and there's black people that are sitting outside, like in the sun, and then there's white people that are inside. And if I remember correctly,
It's
the
definitely
white
not
people.
Africa.
It was
It's literally an
Verona.
Italian. Yeah, it was Verona. Yeah, exactly.
But
Well,
I think the difference is not really that big of a deal. That it's not Africa. I think it establishes the same thing.
well, yeah, but and then the other thing on top of this is that I think if I remember correctly, all the white people were wearing black clothes, and the black people were wearing white clothes.
Yeah.
And then let me look for my
This
notes
scene.
for more.
You're saying in the scene this is the case?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because everything seems to be a comment on like black culture, white culture. Quite find out where it was going. I think this might be just time missed on me, but maybe like a second watch would do me justice. The other thing seems that I definitely found to be true, or definitely want to be poignant, but we can talk about those. Or I think right because this scene is definitely a bit jarring. I think there's definitely this idea of like she wants simplicity and she sees Africa as this place of simplicity.
Yeah, and then obviously the stock market is like directly represented as like a contrast to that. Like it's very complicated. Nobody understands what's going on. Everybody's screaming and shouting all the time. Like so I agree that's what they were going for of like, some sort of like very like primitivist idea of like, oh yeah, life in Africa is so simple and life in uh, you know, Western society is so complex and modern.
Yeah.
But like I don't feel like it ever really does that much with that, and also like that's not
Like,
enough
what?
to like
It doesn't do much with that.
yeah.
Yeah, I don't think the
also feel like
stocks scenes were especially powerful. I don't think.
Yeah.
I think the idea of that is kind of like pretty.
It's also like a pretty racist theme to begin with.
Yeah.
Wait, what's a racist theme? That Western
That like
society is moving fast.
No.
yeah, like Western
Theme is not the way that we're clear. The theme I'm saying that it's is not that Western society is moving fast and like Africa's moving slow. For this
That's not what I
character,
said. That's not what I said. It's complex versus simple.
Either way, I think it's kind of the same. But
No, I think the
sure,
difference
my point is, it's not that. It's that the world that she is in, she sees as too complex, too fast, slower place. Now, I think with that, this idea of like slowness and fastness is a bit of a joke. We'll kind of get there in a bit, but and I think maybe this is the issue. I think you guys think this major theme of I think this is actually it.
Why
She
make
wants-
if it's not a major theme? Why make it 30 minutes of my time, or like 45 minutes of my time?
It's a major theme.
And the title of the movie.
I finish.
Yeah.
I think this is it here. Like this, slower, less civilized place, and this to her is interesting, right? Like this is something she almost wants, but at the same time, she is like fast paced, right? She's tracked to this stock market guy. And I think this whole movie is about her being the juxtaposition of the slow and the fast, right? And we can get into that in further detail in a bit. Is that she is being like for the sake of trying to a moment, just trying to be in Africa, trying to like live this simple life and like this sort of thing. Because, and I think because it's not just blackface, right, guys? Like, it's not like, oh, this is casual blackface. It's like very jarring blackface, right? Like it's really cut into it. It's like her face. It's supposed to like be this ridiculous juxtaposition, which is why I don't think it's like a well, not Antonioni's part. Like show like the ridiculousness of her, right? And that like she wants this so bad, but like she doesn't even know what the simple life is, and like selfish is like completely insane. Like is like a negative quality of her, frankly. And there's kind of this teeter totter between slow and fast, and it's a teeter totter that's never really settled on because neither of them are right. Because both our character who lives the slow life and the character who lives the fast life are unhappy.
I mean, I agree that like that's like something like I thought all of these things, but I don't feel like it ever like did anything with them beyond this like they had like a it felt like that's where the movie was going. So I was like, oh okay, like I see now, I see now. Here's what he's doing with this whole like offensive blackface scene and like portraying her as ridiculous and all this stuff. But then like that whole like theme just like ends, and then all of a sudden it's like okay, now we're just like back to her in modern society and all of these stock market scenes and all of her like relationship drama and all this stuff. Like it doesn't like I feel like in order to wrap this up nicely, it would have needed to like bookend this like second half of the movie with like some sort of like tie-in with like what's happened before.
I
Otherwise,
think my point
it
is
just
that this blackface scene is not a theme; it's evidence. I think that's what you're missing. I think, but the fact that we're not able to like list another theme.
Well, Caleb isn't saying this is a theme. The general theme is the black versus white thing, and etc. etc. That there's multiple things we've already talked about. The blackface is just one of them.
One, and then a second was a scene with black people. I don't know if this is necessarily like.
And the name, and actually, there's technically we mentioned 2 more scenes, and the fact that the whole idea is that why even have the scene then?
I just explain why we have the scene.
Yeah, but what does that do for the movie at all? In that case,
okay, I can repeat what I said, but what what it does for the movie is that it establishes.
It makes us not like the character.
That's what, because it makes us think like, wow, she is like ridiculous and like immature and like, because up until this point, she's someone who like, for the most part, she kind of like knows what she's talking about. She's like kind of a mature like, stability point in this movie, right? We're dealing with characters like her mother, like and or ex fiance, I should say, like Piero, like these people are like very flawed characters. She is not flawed at this point, and what it does is it presents her as flawed because we want to know that her way of thinking inherently or not proper. That there is no like solution to this whole like slow versus fast thing. And my point is, this scene is not to set up a racial theme; it is just evidence. That's purely what it is. I think you guys might be reading a bit too much into it.
Except I feel like it never like goes far enough to like display her as being like absurd. And like I said before, like they have this like
Wait, that scene doesn't? Is that what you're saying?
oh the whole scenes like all of these collection of scenes that we've talked about that display her being racist. But furthermore,
wait, what's that? You guys keep talking. You've scene. That's her being racist. What are these other scenes?
Because she has a scene where she's doing blackface, and then she has like a whole separate scene later.
It's the second scene. That's the literally immediately follows up.
No, it's not. It's not. There's a whole separate scene later where she's like talking about like societal problems with black people and being really racist. There's a separate scene that's like 10 minutes later or 50 minutes later, maybe.
Yeah.
It immediately follows up. I mean, what is she saying?
No, I agree. There is another scene immediately after where she's talking about that, but then there's another scene that's like 10 minutes later or more. But regardless,
you're saying, it's just like hard for me to like rebut. Like, I don't know exactly what you're talking about. You're not saying anything specific.
Well, like I said, I already established. I don't really remember the specifics of what she said. I just wrote down like, "Damn, this scene's really racist." She's spouting a bunch of racist shit.
Yeah, I remember.
But regardless, the point, like, that's not even the point I'm trying to make. The point I'm trying to make is that like Antonioni never goes far enough to make this feel like a strong theme of the movie, because after we have like
not a theme of the movie, Caleb. That's what I'm saying. My exact words are, this is not a theme of the movie. You keep trying to make it into a theme of the movie. I don't think it is.
Okay, well, I think that's like, then what is the theme of the movie then? Because that's like
the theme of the movie is
right? What?
Like, the slow life
cut out.
Is the slow life versus the fast life.
Yeah, but all of these evidence that you like that we're talking about, like everything we've talked about so far in this movie, is what's taken place in like this like 20-minute to like hour like span, like that 40-minute span.
The rest of the evidence of this theme, I'm saying, the slow versus the fast life. Is that what you're asking?
Yes.
Yeah, like what? Like if you have
sure. Let's go into this. I think quotes, obviously, it's direct quotes. Or first thing, we start this way. Our slow character, very clearly Victoria. Doesn't move much. She doesn't speak much. They make her feel out of place in the fast environments, right? Like when she goes to the stock market, it's just black in the previous scene. I think black in the following scene as well. Or this, she changes. Her dress, right? To juxtapose like all these guys in these black suits or these things, because like she is out of place here. Isn't fast as masculine, which is like kind of its own gender commentary. But Hero is the fast, right? He says himself he can't stop moving. He is constantly moving in this movie. It's a movie that itself still shots with there's not a shot in the entire movie where like there's no someone just standing there movie, except for I guess like scene with her mother where she is standing still herself and kind of giving these like dramatic, not quite looks to the camera sort of things, but it's of course this irony of the fact that she's still in this like stock market where all this crazy stuff's happening, right? The movie. You can't find a still shot in the movie. Right, so she's clearly the slow character, he's clearly the fast character. And these are two people that these are two things which may naturally be attractive because you want the other's life, aren't fit for each other. She says this in one of the final scenes, right? Where she's talking about how she loves him. I think I should get the quote because I really like this quote a lot. Gosh, I wish I could find it. I have it somewhere, but it's something along the idea of like him, but she like hates, or she hates that she doesn't love him enough as well. Like she dislikes like the amount that she loves him. She's like right in the middle, right? It's like not enough that she would ever really want to be with him. She has this attraction to him, and in all of her scenes, there's this juxtaposition where he's trying to get her to stop, right? She begins to think. Whenever she begins to think, she probably thinks about like her past with her, ex-fiance and all these things, and she moves away from him. So she gets in her own head, and like we can kind of feel her emotion in like plenty of these scenes, which I can go through them. But I think, or like the scenes with her ex-fiance, or just these scenes in the marketplace where she's just thinking about like what's going on in her life, these sorts of things. That enough evidence? Should I continue?
So there, effectively, all this evidence sounds like in the latter half.
No, this is throughout.
I don't think anything in the first yeah, pretty much the stock market. Well, the first hour in relation to this that doesn't really. All it does is establish that she's racist in the racist scenes, and then the scenes with the stock market establishes that nothing for about 30 minutes before she actually shows up. She's like, actually no, she's there for like 3 minutes, and the whole stock market scene's like 40 minutes. Altogether, every stock market scene. And all that establishes is that Piero runs around and yells for like 2 minutes, and then we get scenes of 30 minutes of dudes yelling, and then her mother yelling.
You guys are being really unfair because I just literally said what else it establishes. So like, I don't know if you're not listening once again, or if I should repeat that.
No, the problem is that I don't think it establishes those things effectively enough to actually care about those things.
Oh, like, that's like, you just summed up my feelings for this movie, Derek. That was perfect.
Why would it not though? Why does that not do it? Because I literally don't understand like how he could do it. I think it's like pretty effective, fairly efficient. We get a lot in these scenes.
I would disagree entirely that this was efficient.
Yeah. I think that's like my opinion too. Like this like does some like a couple things that are interesting, but like it does them like not efficiently. That's like exactly the right words. Like it takes the whole movie to like bring up like a few different points that I don't feel were that strong in the end.
Yeah, sums it up for me pretty much perfectly.
I don't understand you could say that when I'm giving you like all this evidence. Like if
I
I'm
just,
saying,
yeah, that you
don't
believe those
endorse-
things and that they're effective for you. I entirely disagree that they were effective or efficient. Is the pretty much
How can if you want to debate efficiency, whatever, but like I don't understand you can debate effectiveness, right? Like I'm giving
I
you like
literally was not
several
affected
examples.
by this movie a single way, other than that I went away thinking, "Wow, he made this character seem racist, and this other character seem like a douche, and I like none of the characters, and I wasted 2 hours of my time."
I don't understand you guys can say this when it's like you have there's nothing you liked about these characters whatsoever.
Literally not a single thing, other than that she had a cool shot where she was walking away from this dude who's a dickhead. That's lit.
Yeah. Honestly, though, like we talked about, like your whole theme, like you talked about how like the theme is like fast versus slow, but like I don't understand how this is supposed to be like important or like interesting. Like I agree that that's the theme of the movie, but
What do
like
you
when
mean?
we
I don't
compare
understand.
this to our other movie where like it's about like coming to terms with death and like your social relations with those around you, it feels like personal. Like I like empathize with what Ozu's trying to do in that movie. In this movie, like yeah, sure, we're getting like a glimpse into this woman's like psychic dilemma that is already established as being absurd. But like if this woman's a bitch, she's racist and absurd and irrational in what she's believing, and her conflict is not that profound. It's like between fast and slow, which like is
Wait,
like kind of
so not
interesting.
being able to be happy is like not profound?
I
Not
mean,
in a very serious way that I haven't seen 1,000,000,000 times.
but I don't understand like
Literally, we've watched other Ozu movies which are exactly about this.
Except for they're done in an actually interesting and effective way, which we've already talked about.
You can't blame like if we're gonna throw in like in a way that's been done before. This is literally half. Of
Yeah, that's a way that's been done before, better and more interesting, more efficiently. Didn't waste my time. Didn't make me hate the characters, etc.
Then he does it in an autumn afternoon. This is not the point. And first, those movies that do this, feel free to. Can't think of many or any, frankly. But what it does is this shows unhappiness. Like you literally can't be happy. I think you guys are like
that sounds like a pretty infantile. Like honestly, that's not that profound though. Like oh, I can't make a choice. I'm so unhappy no matter what I do. Like that sounds like some teenage
not.
angst type shit. Like
It's not though. I think that's like more about ideally, like her ideal life is that she would just in Africa living this like simple life because that's what she thinks would make her happy. Little does she know like Africa, and I thought they made this incredibly clear. I guess like you guys understand this very whitewashed perspective of it.
well, yeah. I mean that's obvious that she has a really misconstrued perception of what African life is like, which is why her dilemma is so stupid. Because it's like if you had half a brain, you would realize that this dilemma is like nonsensical. So like
How would
not
you know
only
that?
is because that's just like basic
It was made
knowledge.
in 1962. What basic knowledge in 2019? Like it was like much more globalized society. They've
Just because that time period, perhaps that time period they were able to like conceive of the idea of equality, doesn't mean anything. That doesn't make it somehow magically more interesting.
Yeah, I think like
It's not-
if you
nothing was
actually think that
equality.
like if you actually think that like life in Africa is gonna be like if you think life anywhere is gonna be utopian and peaceful and pastoral, like that you're just dumb no matter what time you're in, and it's not like something
I don't think
specific
that's true
to
though,
like
because this is
it's
like
not like
something that we've seen in like several of our movies. And Joe, this is like a common thing. What do you mean, dude? People didn't in 1962. There is no internet.
Just because it's a
Right?
common
Like,
thing doesn't make it interesting, effective, or anything, Matt.
and it doesn't have anything to do with the internet. It's literally just having life wisdom and realizing that people have problems no matter where you are. And if you don't realize that, like you're basically just dumb. Like that's why this character's dumb.
this is not true though, because like, how would she know?
Because that's just basic life wisdom and like understanding that people have problems no
Well,
matter where you
No, but
go.
I think
We've said the same thing 4 times. We should probably move on.
it's not
I
that
agree.
people don't have problems. It's problems. Like it's not. She doesn't see Africa as utopia. She just as like a slower place. I'm asking you. Africa is like not this like place where you shoot rhinos every day and these sorts of things. How would she know anything about it?
Wait, I'm confused. What you asked because you cut
She
out a
does
little
not think
bit.
Africa's utopia. There's no Africa seems like the best place on earth. What she sees as Africa is a place that matches her speed. What? How would she? But Africa is a place that is becoming modernized.
Except for the fact that okay, so you're saying that because it's not, she believes it's not modernized and she can't know that somehow that makes it okay that she's unaware that people have problems everywhere. The problem is that she has a problem in this specifically area, and that she's like,
Africans don't have problems. Where does she say that? Like, in the whole movie.
no, it's not that she.
Well,
Okay,
it's the implication, right? Because
Yeah.
like you're saying that like
she
her
doesn't have.
whole
No,
like
it's
her
not
whole
implications.
her whole dilemma is right. Like this life is fast. I need a slow life. That's where a slow life is. So even if we take it for granted that like it's a reasonable assumption to assume that Africa is a slow life, the unreasonableness just moves one step over by becoming having a slow life will solve all my problems and make me happy. That's like also just as absurd of a proposition.
Not one thing you're saying, like solve my problems make me happy. I need all my problems solved. I need to be happy. Like she just wants to be happy. Being somewhere that matches your speed, that can definitely make you happy.
I think that
I
like
think that's a fair assumption.
putting all of your like stock in happiness in life on making some external change is usually just not very wise. Like because it's never going to live up to your
Doesn't do that.
expectations.
So I don't even understand like why. Like
And also,
he just
he doesn't even
just can't-
effectively show that that's actually going to do anything for her. And if the fact that we spent 2 hours of our time on something that's not even going to be potentially effective for her.
2 hours of her time. It's like a 15-minute scene in the movie.
15-minute scene? No, this is the whole theme. You just said this was
You
the
just-
whole
yeah,
theme
you just
of the
explained
movie.
the whole theme of the movie.
Was it the Africa stuff? No, that
No,
stuff is
No, the whole
Fast and slow thing.
so.
What is the point of the movie then? Fast and slow, right? That she wants a slow life?
There's this idea of like, what's better to occupy your time, right? Like finding things for yourself to do, you know, like getting a job with like this very fast pace where your life's always fluctuating up and down, no stability. Very stable, slow life, right? They see it with money too, where the characters are like the stock market obviously is like a place of money, but it's also a place of like volatility, right? Where stocks can go up, stocks can go down. And she even says herself, thought I've never really been afraid of being poor because I've never really dreamed of being rich. I'm just kind of content where I am. And it's like at multiple points of the movie, which we haven't gotten to, flies with one perspective or the other. Until the end, it's like, wow, actually neither of these perspectives. Right? And it's not even like there's a middle, which like happiness isn't accomplished through like these greater philosophies. It's accomplished through doing things to make yourself happy.
But does she ever like do anything to make herself happy? Does she ever like make an effort, like an actual effort to like achieve a slow, stable life? Like it's not that hard to do. She could move out to the country.
The point is, the slow, stable life doesn't make her happy, Caleb. That's what I'm trying to say. Like, she thinks it'll make her happy.
But yeah, but
Her life is a slow, stable life, right? There's very low volatility in her life. Like, she can't fight her inner demons of like not slow and stable. He presents that.
Yeah, but I think like
For each other,
that's,
they
like,
are happiness,
what I'm
but they can't fight their own inner selves. Each other.
yeah, but this is what I'm talking about it seeming infantile because she's like, I can't be happy this way, and then I can't be happy this way either. Then it's just like, how am I supposed to feel? Like, sorry, lady, like I don't know what you want. Like I can't help you. Can't get emotionally invested in you because you're not going to be happy no matter what happens. So I don't care about you because
it's something that's built up to the movie. That's what you mean. I cannot. She's like, I'm living a slow and stable life. This was what makes me happy because this is who I am. I guess to like summarize it all. So the fast and slow thing, it's like kind of establishes this kind of basic dichotomy, right? You have two characters who are kind of intrinsically opposite, right? But who are attracted to each other. The story's end is with the two characters kind of differences and getting together, right? Because love conquers all. Up for that in a lot of ways, even from the beginning we get her leaving her ex-boyfriend, and it's like, oh, she needs to move on from whatever this is, something radically different, and maybe even though radically different, so like alien and bad. But what ends up happening is, right? Because they aren't able to get over what it is it's people denying themselves happiness for comfort's sake. And I think what this allows you to do by having them not to get together as opposed to get together, because really it's the same theme, right? Of love conquering all. Everyone who's doing the same thing, it allows you to see yourself in them. And the characters do get together, or in the stories where the characters do get together at the end. It's like, it's so easy to be like, that only happens in the movies. It shows you like how ridiculous it is to deny your own happiness in real life. Kind of my conclusion on that theme.
I like it. Let's see.
Mention some other good things that we like about Leclerc.
I thought that one great thing about Leclerc is that there's a lot of set diversity. You can always like every set was so completely different than all the other ones. Like from the stock market to like this like random desert and cafe to like all these various city scenes. It was like we were being taken around to a lot of different places. So I like that.
All carefully constructed, right?
Yeah.
These scenes with all these like different sets, our characters still remain central, which is impressive, right? Because if you've seen with on the stock market, right, and like several characters we've touched on, the fact that the story still remains so precise in the exact same manner as the scenes with like a single main character kind of wandering aimlessly throughout. I think it's hard to kind of have that almost perfect equilibrium, I would say, it reaches.
Another cool thing about like kind of in line with that, the stock market scenes are cool because it feels like we can pick out characters from the crowd, So it's not just like a mass of people that are all the same. Like we feel like even if we don't know their names necessarily, that there's like various characters, Like the two guys in like the very center that are sort of like in the centerpiece of the whole floor. Like, they just feel like there's all these like different personalities, so it doesn't feel homogenous.
Definitely, I think that's what makes it so strong. Much about is like how the film was shot. What did you guys think of like the cinematography, mise en scène, blocking of the movie?
I think especially I noticed in the first scene that it was pretty incredible straight off. Like with specific thing that like really perked my interest was when she pulled wasn't not sure if it was a cup or not, but out of the like picture frame. So it's like a picture frame, a frame of a movie within the movie, like a something, the idea of like a story within a story in the frame story and whatnot. But
Yeah, it's like a frame within a frame.
yeah, and she's pulling out. I forget. I really wish I remember what it was, but I thought it was really cool. And it was all done like over her shoulder.
She does this a couple times too, right? 'Cause I'm trying to recall, but there's definitely another scene where she's like at her mom's house. I think she's looking at or maybe she's at his apartment. She's looking at like picture frames of his family, like asking him questions. I think exactly is the whole point of this like first boyfriend.
To give a frame to the story.
So that's it. Because then why does he reoccur?
Oh, that's so clever.
Why does he reoccur though? You know what I mean? Come back with him throwing rocks at her window. He is throwing rocks, right? And it's just like being obnoxious in some capacity.
Well,
With
he's like her old way of living. So this is kind of
Yeah.
the emotional burden of that coming back to haunt her.
Yeah, 100%. And I think actually I'm just kind of realizing something. Sorry, like as we're saying this. So with the old, when he goes back to like her house to throw the stuff, right? His persistence and like the relationship above all, right? Like he longs for her and he yearns for her. You know, he's like throwing rocks or whatever he's doing, banging on her window. I can't exactly remember. But then later, the scene's kind of mirrored. This scene of Arrow, right? And what happens to him? She plays kind of coy with him. She almost wants him to want her. He talks to her for a bit, but then he gets caught up in his own stuff, right? This guy steals his car and he gets completely caught up in that. And the scene turns from like a scene about them to really a scene about him and losing his car. It's kind of like this dichotomy of with her ex-boyfriend, I think his name's Ricardo, right?
Yep, that's correct.
Ricardo, he's about Vittoria in spite of himself almost, you know, in spite of his dignity, in spite of, you know, his career, whatever. While Piero is in spite of everything else, you know, in spite of Vittoria, in spite of other people, and even almost in spite of like, his possessions, which I think is arranged. The character I want to ask about is the mom. What do you guys think of like the mom? She plays a pretty central part, where she kind of gets ripped off and about the whole stock market, and that whole scene in general of people kind of like falling to the stock market. What do you guys think was some, you know, symbolism of that?
I guess kind of like the futility, like it's represented as like a kind of zany, pointless exercise, right? Like it takes a whole bunch of energy, and then there's this quote, like, "Where does the money go?" And then they're just like, "It doesn't go anywhere." Like, you know what I mean? It just like they put in all this effort, all for basically to do something they don't understand, and it's very like abstract, and they all end up getting burned by it in the end.
Do you think the mom kind of like highlights this futility?
Yeah, I guess so.
She's definitely like the character I associate with the stock market, right? Like she's never seen the stock market. She kind of like is drawn to the stock market. Her arc revolves around the stock market.
Well, you don't associate like the man with the stock
No.
market,
Yeah.
even though he's like, yeah, he's the stock
He's-
broker.
With it too, but like the mom is almost exclusively stock market. And Piero, of course, is this whole Vittoria storyline.
That's true.
Derek, what do you think? Like, what do you think like the mom's like kind of role in this is?
Hmm. It was just kind of I don't know if it's her role, but she was definitely an interesting contrast to Vittoria.
I think that actually definitely might be it. Continue.
Because Victoria is definitely like their personality is way different. Victoria's like way less abrasive, and I'm just gonna say calm, but I'm not sure if that's entirely it. So maybe the mother's supposed to represent that in the stock market. This abrasive rat like hunger for money, and Victoria's like the complete opposite of that. That's not what she wants out of life.
I think there's definitely something to this. I remember when watching the film, one thing that stood out to me is we only have really two characters who ever give us like these like looks to the camera. The first of which is obviously Vittoria, because she gives us like 2,000 looks to the camera, right? And the other one is her mom, and her mom in the stock market She's kind of like wandering through, shook up about everything. I think this is right after the stock market fails, and she kind of like gives a look to the camera, but like chaos and stuff. So it's like you can almost not even take the mother's because everything's going around her, and it's like see where Victoria comes from almost in this moment, right? Where she doesn't want that. She doesn't want to like be looking to the camera in the midst of chaos, reflecting on what went wrong after it's already gone wrong, sort of thing. What comments do you guys have on the movie? Or should we move to the awards?
I think I said most of the things I have to say.
I was gonna say the second stock market scene was much too long. Like pretty much the one where it's crashing. It was about 25 minutes long. The first one wasn't excessively long, so in that one I don't really have I didn't think I wasn't like thinking, wow, this is going on very long. I'm kind of losing interest. Second one I was definitely losing interest towards the end. And I think he could have easily cut out a lot of the middle part of it.
I kind of agree with that.
I don't think the middle part was like more effective being that length.
Interesting. I didn't get this. I thought for me it's the end of the movie where I feel like it kind of slows down a bit. I thought this point in the movie was still pretty.
It was pretty much just the scene itself.
I do think the movie does slow down a bit towards the end, which is like I get it, right? As the characters kind of have to like start making choices, it slows down, but also it's dynamically because it's like a lot of shots of them doing not very interesting things and a lot of not very interesting shots.
Yeah.
Whatever.
I definitely feel like he was kind of getting a little too wankery towards the end, but I think the actual end with just like the scene shots, just like the architecture was an interesting touch. I don't know if it was like the most effective way of doing it, but I definitely thought it was interesting. It reminded me
a bit to realize what was going on.
Yeah.
Did it for you guys?
Definitely.
Yeah.
What we're supposed to get from it. I didn't realize like, oh, this is them not meeting until the movie like literally ended. I'm like, oh, I guess they never met up again.
Yeah. The world moves on. Everything, the places they were, we saw. I guess that's why he took so long. But I don't think with every shot of where they were going. But I think it could have been as effective if he'd cut it down a bit toward the end there.
Like 2 minutes. Yeah, definitely could have been like 2 minutes. It would have been fine. Not like what is it, like 8 almost. I don't know. I've been watching all of these like Achapong. I'm not even going to say his last name. The Thailand director who directed Uncle Boonmee. I've been watching a lot of his movies, and he like does like a lot of these wanky endings. So I'm kind of like, become like what's the word?
Jaded.
Numb to it. Numb. I guess, like, whatever. I guess it's just how movies end now. Is it's like ridiculously long sequences of like nothingness. But no, I think it's definitely legitimate criticism.
The architecture stuff though reminded me of that Snow experimental film where it's just the picture of the building in the room it gets zoomed in on with everyone moving around it, and like I thought that was the first thing I remembered or thought of when I saw that. Oh, the shot of like the last shot that we see of actually them, or one of them. The shot of Victoria walking down the street is really cool, and then she like turns around and he's like already gone. Like she's not even down the street and he's already gone.
Yeah, it is interesting. It is an interesting shot. Like she just kind of disappears. This catch this Ernest Hemingway reference like half of the movie.
It wouldn't be a neorealist film without some kind of Western literature reference.
Ernest Hemingway reference. It's like Snows of Kilimanjaro.
Oh yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
What did you guys like? Do you guys know anything about that short story? Because it felt very like
I mean, I read it like forever ago, but
curious if it tied it at all. I was supposed to do my research, but I definitely didn't. So.
well, I don't know. I can't think of anything other than it being in Africa.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too.
Yeah.
Like, I don't remember anything of the short story that would stand out as similar to this.
But like also kind of this ridiculous view of Africa. Maybe that's.
Oh
what
yeah,
it was.
that'd do it. Yeah, the dude just goes on a safari hunt in Africa, expecting great things, and not great things happen. Yeah.
Classic. Okay, let's move on to these awards though. Best quote. Anyone have the best quote?
I have the one at the end of An Autumn Afternoon. In the end, we spend our life alone.
That is a good one. Yeah, that's chose the obvious one.
Yeah,
Right there, Jared.
my non-obvious one that I really liked, I thought that was when the gourd was drunk. He recited a poem, "Make hay while the sun shines, waste not your thoughts on eternity, drain your glass ere life is gone."
Classic
Yeah.
gourd humor. It's a bit different because this is one that I don't know, maybe it's not like as poetic, but like really made me think. She goes, yeah, in Leclise, she says, "I never think about poverty, just like how I never think about getting rich." I guess someone who's like maybe a bit of a victim of capitalism, who does like still think about getting rich and think about getting poor, and I never kind of saw these two things as directly correlated, and it's kind of put in this very simple way. I'm like, oh, stop worry, stop being so concerned about like being wealthy, and stop being so concerned about
I already said it, but the where does the money go thing like really encapsulated the whole stock market scene to me. Kind of almost like a cherry on top for like understanding that scene.
Okay, favorite scene.
I have a few, but I'll just mention two because they're both pretty much similar and they're thematically the same. This shot of the gourd sitting in the dark after everything preceding it was how powerful that was. I thought that was great, and then how it was kind of reflected in the end with Harayama. When with the darkness surrounding him, and he's still sitting in the light, but he's definitely the darkness in the every preceding shot comes closer and closer. I thought that was really great.
On a similar note, this might have what you've been in the same scene that you're talking about in your first one, but the scene where Tamako is crying after the two like kind of more main characters leave, and it's just the gourd sitting there like drunkenly shouting for beer, and she just like starts breaking down.
Yeah.
I know we talked about this and how Matt didn't like it as much, but I still found it really powerful.
Yeah, that was a good one.
I'm gonna cheat and do two. My favorite's probably the opening scene from Leclise, because I think it's like up there with like all-time great opening scenes. I think there's so much you could like go into. And analysis of a movie, I might have to start with that one. Who knows? But the other one I really liked was the bar scene in An Autumn Afternoon, where he meets up with like his old like military friend, and they're singing. And I just think it's so fun.
Yeah, that was a good one.
I also kind of off note. I really like our main character in that film of An Afternoon. What's the guy's name again?
Hirayama.
Hirayama. I need to like get these pronunciations on point. Hirayama. He's just like, yeah, I had a mine. He's a interesting guy. He's just like a very like nonchalant comment about this whole experience. I thought it was very funny.
And then the next time he comes in, and he gets the song put on, or I guess the third time he comes in, and it was kind of sad because the other guys in the bar started making fun of the song.
Yeah, it's a bit sad.
He just wanted to come in and chill and remember the good times, or the goodish, better times, and gets reminded of everyone fucking making fun of him.
Sad days. Who was you guys' favorite character?
Hirayama.
Yeah, is it cheating to say that? I'll go for someone else, but I feel like that's like the only
He
right
is
answer.
such a great character. I just love him. I'll pick another one because yeah, that's kind of cheating. That's pretty much cheating.
Cheating. You guys can say that.
I think Victoria was pretty good. Maybe a bit of a problematic character, but yeah, this whole fast slow thing's pretty clever. Well developed character.
Caleb, I'm sorry, I kind of missed it.
Oh, I said Victoria because even though she's a problematic character, the whole fast and slow thing is pretty well developed and makes her interesting.
I go with. I looked up his name so like I would know the name of my favorite character. Guy who's I guess was like Hariyama's cadet. I just think he's so funny. I don't know something about him. I do think one thing we didn't talk about though, I think is really interesting is even though they go to this bar, it comes at the expense of Sakamoto leaving the Gourds bar. Or somebody else. It was the Gourd, right? Whose bar they're at initially,
Yeah.
or whatever.
Yeah, and then they go to a different bar.
Okay. Best performance. I think this one's an interesting conversation.
Shishu Ryu, the man who played Shuhei Hirayama.
Is that the main character? Yeah. I liked the actress that played his daughter the most. Like she just was like so bold and like clear eyed, I guess, when she spoke. She was really entertaining to watch and well encapsulated that like feeling of like strong female character
Caleb,
that in some way like threatens the old order of things.
might be with you. I think it's definitely between her and Cleese. I think they're both really good. I would probably actually side with you, Caleb, and say
Wait, who
it's
was the
his
other one
daughter,
between her and who else?
Victoria from the Cleese.
Oh yeah.
I would probably side with you and say the daughter, but I mean, they both did really good. I don't think I can't say his name. Shishu Ryu. I don't think this is his best performance. I liked him much better in I Was Born, but I think his acting job was like much more nuanced there.
Yeah, I actually kind of thought that too. That not to be a hater, but in Autumn Afternoon, I thought a lot of the actors weren't and they weren't bad, but they didn't really do a whole lot for me, except for her, and that's why I think made her stand out so much to me.
Yeah, I'm kind of worried I'm being almost biased in the same way, which is why I say probably she was the best performance. I wanted to give the nod to Victoria as well. Acting in that movie was a bit weaker than we've seen out of his first two movies, at least. Especially compared to I Was Born, but where I thought the acting by Shishu Ryu was phenomenal.
Mm-hmm.
Hey guys, it's that time. Derek, we'll let you start. Wait, first step was an Autumn Afternoon a step up or step down from
Early summer.
Early Summer is better?
Wait, wasn't there one movie in between? This is a round 3 movie, and Early Summer was a first round movie.
I Was Born, but then Early Summer, yeah. I'd say this is a step up from Early Summer, and I said I Was Born, but was a slight step up from Early Summer. So I think this one's an Autumn Afternoon, then I Was Born, then Early Summer.
This is the best of his three.
Yeah, I'll concur on that point.
I think I like I Was Born but better. I'm a sucker for these these earlier movies, but I don't know. I think the acting is a bit better. I don't know. More interesting. Well, maybe not fair. Either way, it's the middle one for me. What about the police? What do you guys have it give as a step up or a step down from the passenger?
Step down.
Probably step down. Yeah.
Step down from the passenger. Interesting. I have it as a step up, albeit a slight one. Step up or a step down from one note?
Oh man.
Mm,
Definitely step down. I really like Lenote.
I had one note better than the passenger, so I also was a step down. Derek.
step up.
Interesting. We all have different rankings for Antonioni's movies. Nice. In fact, we each have a different one as our number one. Okay. So, film did you like better, Derek?
An autumn afternoon. I thought the narrative and directing much better. And I think the acting was about equal, and I thought the music was better. So overall, better.
I agree. I like the autumn afternoon better. I thought the theme was really strong, and the cinematography was really astounding. And whereas with the Cleese, I wasn't quite sure what I was supposed to take from it. And like now it's been cleared up a little bit, but still like when I was watching it, and still even now I feel like autumn afternoon is just much stronger.
Much stronger. It's like a bit strong.
Yeah.
Really go with an autumn afternoon. I think they're honestly pretty close in my mind. Both of these movies were worse than a lot of the movies you've watched this round. Am I crazy for saying that?
Really? I think this is autumn afternoon is literally my number one overall. Yeah.
Dang.
I don't know about that. I like.
I wouldn't go that far, but I like it.
I don't know. I like Murnau, Renoir. Yeah, I like all four of. Yeah, I think if I had to rank the 6 movies, I'd have these as 5 and 6 myself. It's interesting. But we have another Japanese director.
Yeah, I'd definitely say.
Next episode.
Yeah, we do.
Kenji Mizoguchi. Yeah, I don't even remember which film it is of his. I haven't watched it yet.
Life of Oharu.
Life of Oharu, and then we also have David Lynch's
Eraserhead.
Eraserhead.
Yeah.
Oh man, I feel like this next round is gonna pop off.
So, you have
Yeah.
faith? I think probably the favorite, but I haven't seen either. So what the hell do I know?
Yeah.
Then after that, we have 3 more left, guys. We have the 2 semifinal rounds, and can you believe it?
That's just crazy.
One of 5 directors, we will crown the best director of all time.
Wow.
And Woody Allen is in that potential 5.
I have no idea how y'all allowed him.
His movies were all better. Even you, like, upset if, like, Antonioni made it, Derek. Like, you weren't that down on, like, any of his movies individually.
Except for Crimes and Misdemeanors, which is the most recent one. But I wasn't that down on it. Yeah, it wasn't bad. But I think this is the median voter theorem at work here.
So that was spicy.
I don't know what that means, so I'm gonna have to do a quick Google after the podcast. But until the next podcast, I'm Matthew Moore. On behalf of my co-host Derek Krasinski and Caleb Ferguson. Have a night, day, whatever it is for you, and remember, watch more movies.